and get everybody really familiar and just kind of showcase how you would actually go about using it in your day to day. Now, with that being said, we still have a few people rolling in right now. So we're going to give everybody another about 2 to 3 minutes to kind of get settled. So if you want to go grab a coffee or a water or something, feel free, and we'll get started here shortly.
Okay, this is a good idea.
All righty, everybody. It is 3 after top of the hour. To those of you who have just joined us over the past minute or so, do want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We're here to talk about M365 Copilot, right? Now, this is all brought to you by a fantastic Microsoft partner called OnPar. They're unable to join us today, but if you're, looking at licensing or you're trying to figure out if Copilot makes sense for your organization. Maybe you want to figure out where you have some licensing underutilized and kind of reappropriate those costs to be able to get something like Copilot, right? Without taking an extra chunk out of the budget, right? There's so many ways to do this. If you are encountering any of those scenarios, trying to figure out how to onboard Copilot, OnPar is going to be the partner for you. Now, with that out of the way, I am going to play this quick little short clip just to kind of encapsulate all that Copilot can do, and then we'll get into the actual kind of hands-on demonstration of it. All right, excellent. I love that short little kind of quick clip. Um, just kind of highlighting, right, how Copilot can interact throughout the suite. Um, Now, a couple of things I want to touch on super quick, okay, just to kind of throw these things out here. Number one, Copilot is only as good as your interactions with it. Okay, what I mean by that is prompting. Okay, If you give Copilot something very generic and broad, and you give it a lot of leeway, right? You kind of give it a really long leash, the results you're going to get are going to be varied, okay? Each time you input that prompt. So if you're looking for a specific result, your prompt needs to be relatively specific to what you're actually looking for, okay? That's really important. Number two, Copilot feels like magic, right? A lot of times it looks like magic, but it's not always 100% of the time going to give you a perfectly polished product. Okay, there's still a part in the world where human interaction is required, but what you will find is that a majority of the legwork for some rather daunting tasks gets taken care of by Copilot in seconds, okay? Or as opposed to us kind of manually doing some of these things that we're going to walk through, would traditionally take 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, just depending on the task, okay? So the time saved is impressive. Now, the last thing I want to kind of point out and highlight here is we get asked from time to time about security, right? As it relates to Copilot. Was it secure? Is it safe? It's a Microsoft product, right? And if you're familiar with Microsoft at all, you know that security is at the forefront of everything that they create, right? It's first in mind. Now, as it relates to Copilot, the way that Copilot interacts inside of your environment is dictated by from a security perspective, it's going to be dictated by the policies that you already have in place inside of your organization. So if you're worried about Copilot and security, you're not actually worried about Copilot, you're worried about your own internal security. Okay. So if, for example, you have documents that are restricted access, right, that you've set, okay, that only certain eyes are able to see, if somebody who's not in the know, right, for that folder, if they have Copilot will not be able to access that folder. Okay. Copilot does have a lot of sprawl where it's able to kind of weave in and around and go throughout all of your different files and documents, but it's only going to be able to access the files and documents that you have the respective permissions for. So please do keep that in mind if you're an organization that does not already have some kind of base security policies and procedures in place. Definitely something you would want to explore, right, before onboarding Copilot, because it will be able to kind of go wherever that person's permissions allow them to. Okay, so great. So now that we've got those couple of things out of the way, actually, right now, as we speak, Copilot has been working for us in the background, okay, in this very meeting that we're in right now. And let me show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to move our Teams meeting kind of to the center stage of my screen. And I've got this little icon up at the very top. So we'll come on and jump on over to it and check this out. What I can do is I can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting for me so far. Now, as far as prompting is concerned, this is kind of general, right? I'm not looking for anything specific. I just want to know what has happened so far in this meeting. And you can see within seconds, we have a full breakdown. Along with this full breakdown of everything that we've talked about so far, it also has little footnotes. Now, you'll see these footnotes whenever we're asking Copilot for something, okay? Because Copilot is not just magically making this information up itself, okay? It's pulling context from sources, okay? The source in this instance is going to be the transcript, okay? Because the meeting is recorded. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we kind of roll through, and you'll see these every time we ask for prompts. Now, where would this be useful or important? Look, the reality is everybody's trying to do more with less, right? And a lot of times what that means is we're multitasking. We're getting pulled into meetings, we're reviewing some documents, etc. Maybe it's a meeting we're not even necessarily tuned into, okay, or a meeting that isn't super important to us, but our attendance is important to somebody, so we show up. There's a scenario where you pretty much could tune out, focus on what you need to, and then if you need to come and get the meeting notes real quick, with Copilot, you're able to quickly summarize what's important, what's not, if your name was mentioned, or maybe if some specific tasks with Project X were mentioned. Okay, just kind of a dummy scenario there, if you will. But I can say I use this specific feature at least twice a week. And it is helpful because then, I don't have to go ask somebody else, hey, what did he just mention? Did he say we need that next week or the week after? Or, you can see how those little things, they kind of add up, and it gets kind of difficult to keep track of everything. Copilot can be that go-to for helping to keep track of everything that you've got going on because, at the end of the day, everybody's pretty busy. Now, also notice that we have some suggestive prompts, okay? You're going to notice this whenever we're interacting with Copilot as well. This is pretty neat. I think it gets more powerful when we're interacting with Copilot in a program like Excel, and I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by that in a bit. Now, we could also take a look at the more prompt suggestion options, okay? So there's plenty of ideas here if you can't think of one yourself. And then also we have this little plugin option, okay? So there are some plugins that you can enable with Copilot. For example, if anybody has used Chat GPT, you know that Chat GPT has a lot of plugins with it, right? That allow you to interact in different ways and manners, whether that be through, some sort of image generation or maybe code review, right? These are just a couple of examples of plugins that I've used personally. There's a ton out there. Plugins are becoming more and more accessible as it relates to Copilot itself. Now, I do have kind of a quick question here that I wanted to ask everybody. I've got a couple of these that I'll kind of throw out here. But this first one is, I'm just kind of curious how familiar everybody is with Copilot, right? Um, do you use it regularly? Have you used it a couple times? Maybe you've heard of it, you've never used it, or this is kind of one of your first times hearing about it. Just kind of curious. I'll kind of prod everybody's minds a couple of times with these polls just to kind of see where everybody's at, and it also kind of helps me like shift directions a little bit with a couple of the poll questions. So I do appreciate everybody's participation in those. Now, also notice, Daniel, I see you're still learning how to use it. Hey, that's great. That's perfect. Also notice there are these little feedback icons. You're going to see this with a lot of the Copilot's results, right? And you can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down to let it know whether that was or was not what you were expecting. Of course, it's a model, right? So any feedback you provide it is important. It does help. This right here is exactly what I was looking for. I can give it a little thumbs up there, and I could actually submit exactly why I liked it. Okay. And then you could even go a step further and say, yes, go ahead and share that information. Now, I don't do that all the time. I normally, like most people, or maybe not most people, but if everything's good, I normally give a thumbs up. It's not unless something is like wildly below my expectations that I interact and maybe give a down, right? And then I'll go in and kind of explain why. Now, there's not just always going to be the thumbs up and thumbs down. You're also going to see the option in some of the apps we'll interact with to completely regenerate the content that you were asking for. Now, before we dive into that, I want to kind of keep this within Teams here, right? And cycle out of our specific Teams meeting and bring it into the Teams environment itself, okay? And how Copilot works within Copilot itself, or within Teams itself, I should say. Okay. Now, This is another place where I use Copilot quite frequently, and you're going to see why here in just a second. A couple of the ways that you can interact is in individual chats. Okay, you can open up Copilot. It's just always hanging off to the right, and then what you're able to do is maybe either ask it to summarize the conversation with that individual so far, or you can ask it to look for specific things. Something that I run into semi frequently is I'll ask for a link, right? And somebody will shoot it over to me, and I'll be like, great, right? Get in, do what I need to do, hop out. And then 3, 4 months later, somebody goes, hey, can you go to XYZ and take care of this? And I go, yeah, 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 I can do that. And then I go, where's that freaking link? Where is it? Right. And then I'm hunting around trying to figure out where it's hiding. The first time I encountered that since I've had Copilot, I very simply, you can see right up here above, I said, hey, can you find this specific link for me in the chat? Bada boom, bada bing. Instead of me taking 10, 15, 20 minutes digging around all my chats, trying to figure out who it could have came from, where it's hiding, which link is the right link. I asked Copilot, it provided it to me, and I'm off to the races. Now, you can also do the exact same things that you can in a private conversation inside of a group conversation, okay, inside of Teams. Now, I think where that's probably really helpful is for scenarios where you go on vacation, right? Like, for example, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a vacay here. End of this week into next week, I'm going to be golfing. Okay, well, I'm golfing. I'm not going to be worried about what's going on inside of Teams. When I get back, the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to any of the group chats that have information in them. I'm going to whip up Copilot real quick and ask it to summarize what's happened over the past few days that I missed. Okay. Instead of me scrolling through all of the back and forth and everything that everybody said, I'm going to have Copilot quickly summarize. If I see anything that sticks out, I'll dig a little bit further. And then, and then I'll go ahead and move on to what I need to do. But now instead of taking 5, 10, 15 minutes figuring out what all information I've missed out on, Copilot can do that for me in about 30 seconds. So, it's not just these one-off summarization tasks, right? It's not just the ability to do that. It's the time saved, which allows you then to go focus your time on what's actually important or impactful. Okay. These are the kind of tasks that Copilot excels at. Now, Copilot does also excel at creation. Okay. But also education. And let me kind of show you what I mean by that a little bit. So another way that we can interact with Copilot inside of Teams is notice it actually has its own like chat. Okay. So the way that I would interact with Copilot inside of here is different than I would interact with it, say, in a private chat or a group chat. Okay. Because the functionalities inside of the chats is really just about finding stuff. Okay. Now, if I come to interact with Copilot inside of Teams in the chat version, okay, with Copilot itself, now I'm able to do a whole lot more. What I mean by that a whole lot more is I'm able to create content. I'm able to pull information from the web. I'm able to let it kind of scour the my entire teams, if you will, to find information that I may need. Now, for me personally, of course, finding things is always helpful. But what I've actually used Copilot for a significant amount of time is in relation to education. Now, I'm not talking like getting a bachelor's or anything like that. Okay. In my role, for example, I have to learn new technologies pretty frequently, right? Like these new tools that come out, new ways of doing things, right? I have to learn them to a degree where I understand them enough to then go explain it to people who don't know yet. In order to do that, you traditionally have to go to a bunch of different sources, try to figure out what's correct, what's not correct, and then boil it down to its very simplest form, so you can build back up and then expand upon it and provide it to people in a digestible manner. As soon as I got Copilot a few months ago, it would take me, before Copilot, it would take me roughly 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks to get fully spun up on a brand new topic. Okay. With Copilot, I've been able to drill that down to an average of 3 to 4 days. Now, the reason that is because when I ask Copilot to pull information for me, not only is it pulling from all these different sources, and it's also providing me the footnotes where it's pulling this information from. I can, if I don't understand something initially right off the bat, I can ask Copilot to break it down for me in a more digestible manner. I actually ask Copilot quite frequently to explain things to me like I'm 10 or 12. Okay. The reason I ask it that is because it'll put it in something a little easier for my brain to wrap around. Like it'll talk about, maybe sports or Legos or something like that, right? And it gives me a really quick, easy way to go, oh, okay, I get where we're going with this specific piece. Okay. And then I can dive deeper into the details. Um, Copilot, from just that aspect as it relates to education, has been exceptional. Now, it's of course not just relevant to my role. Think of how impactful that would be for any sort of new hires and employees. Everybody's been in that spot where you get a new gig, a new job, and it feels like trial by fire those first couple of weeks. Not just because everything's new and the social aspects of it. It's really just trying to get comfortable with, where does all this information live? What do I need? What am I working on? Right? Like that stuff takes time, and trying to navigate each organization's like respective file hierarchy, right? And figuring out, how many drill downs you have to go into to find a specific file. That stuff is it's half the job in and of itself. With Copilot, a majority, if not all of that, goes away. Okay. Just because, with the appropriate permissions, okay, assigned to that individual, with Copilot, instead of them bugging, right, everybody else around them to find something very easy, they can just ask Copilot to go pull it for them, right? So you can imagine the ramp up time for a brand new individual in an organization significantly reduced if they're able to essentially have like a sidekick. Okay, Copilot can almost be like a secretary in a way. Okay, but except it's incredibly fast, incredibly efficient, and it can provide you results in seconds, not minutes. Okay. Um, that's what I think is really helpful. Now, with that, I do have a poll question kind of on this topic, because we're talking about some of the different features and capabilities, right? We're going to continue to dive into some more, but I'm curious about, what features of Copilot are you guys most interested in? Is it something like code generation, content creation, formula generation, maybe language translation? Fun fact, Copilot it was graded amongst all the different top translation services. So, we're talking Google Translate. It's like the big one that comes to my mind right now, but there's a ton others out there as well. But it was broken down in a report, and it showed that Copilot was able to more successfully translate 98 of the top languages than any other translation service out there. Now, this was also, I don't know, this report was like 2.5, 3 months ago. And of course, Copilot's not stagnant, right? It's continuing to improve every single day, week over week. So I imagine those numbers could be even a little bit better. And then let me see, Mike, how do we turn Copilot on in Teams and other Microsoft products? I don't see the icon on my Teams like you have. Ah, gotcha, Mike. So the way that you would get Copilot is it's actually a license add-on. So what you'll need to do is work with your organization's team that has access to the admin portal for M365, and then you'll have to go acquire the Copilot licensing. Okay, you can do it right through the portal. I will tell you though that you're going to be paying full retail, right? You're not going to be saving any sort of money. There are a lot of programs out there right now funded by Microsoft that are providing like sometimes a handful of licenses free for a year, okay, depending on a couple of factors. Other times they're giving the license for free for a few months. Just kind of depends. It's circumstance by circumstance, but yeah. So if you're curious about what that looks like for your org and what makes the most sense, I definitely just hit up Donna and her team over at OnPar. And I'll drop some information towards the end to where you guys can contact her and the team should you need to. But yeah, Mike, absolutely. And I appreciate that question, by the way. And if anybody else has questions as we're kind of rolling through these things, don't be shy. Okay. Feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer. If I don't have the answer immediately, I feel pretty confident I can find it. Right. So, excellent. Okay, great. Now let's kind of go through a little scenario here, okay, together, if you will. Think of like kind of we'll do like a project, kind of bare bones to almost a finished product, okay? So let's say, for example, you were given something mundane like I don't know. Let's say somebody asked you to create a presentation on time management methods, time management techniques. I bring up this example. It's actually the first thing I had to create when I joined the Air Force right out of high school and I got to my first base. They really drill like PowerPoints and presenting and speaking, and so they give everybody all the new people like really simple topic to discuss. So for today's purposes, to keep it digestible, we're going to use that one because it's easy. But let's say in this scenario, you don't really know anything about these specific time management techniques, right? You just know that, hey, I'm on time, I'm not late, and I get things done when they need to get done. Okay, but let's say you don't know about specifics. What we can do here, and I'm going to adjust my screen, or no, I don't have to actually. What I'm going to do, or yes, I do. Okay, all right. I'm going to adjust my screen here super quick because I'm going to show you another place that Copilot actually lives, which is on the desktop. So it's actually hanging out in this bottom right corner here. This is actually whenever I'm using Copilot, the way that I interact with it the most frequently, because I can get everything I need from here as far as searching, pulling information, and then have my teams up with all my messages kind of, unencumbered by the Copilot window. So let's do this. Let's go. Please poll the 5 most popular time management techniques uh, from the web. Okay. So I want to be a little specific here, and I want to make sure that it's focusing on external sources. Okay. If I wanted it to focus internal, I could of course state that. Um, Now, one quick thing to note, this is just right a user experience example. When I first got Copilot, I was asking it to pull things from the web, and for whatever reason, it couldn't pull anything from the web, and it was driving me crazy. And I was like, I can't believe that this thing doesn't work yet, right? For the internet. Like, this is why did we even get this? It does work for the web, works perfectly fine. You just have to make sure after you get Copilot onboarded, you have to click on this little plugins icon and enable this little toggle button. Okay. If you don't enable it, Copilot's only going to search internally. Now, while I was talking there, it went ahead and it went inside the organization and found some information, which is great. But then it also said, hey, from the web, here are the top 5 most popular time management techniques. Oh, great. And it's also providing me all the references, okay, where it pulled this information from. So what we can do now is now we know a couple things about time management methods. This is great. Let's pull up a Word document real quick. I'm going to switch screens here. As soon as this will move, there we go. One more time here. Okay, great. Well, let's see. Somebody's waiting in the room. Let's let in Steve here. Okay, great. So what we did is we took that information from the bottom, and now we're going to drop it
Yeah.
into, let me mute there. Okay, perfect. We're going to drop it into our Word document. Now, actually, I'm going to do that a little bit differently because we're going to want to paste this as plain text only. The reason that we want to make sure we're pasting as plain text only when we're going to do something like we are right now is because if we're looking for Copilot to help us regenerate some rewrites, okay, what it's going to do is if we provide it like some hyperlinks and stuff like that, is it's going to say, hey, I can't work with this type of text, this type of information. It has to be plain text only. So we're going to avoid that headache from the jump, make sure everything's plain Jane. And okay, so this is kind of like really basic. We need more information though. So there's a couple of ways that we can work with Copilot to do just that. With this context highlighted, I can ask Copilot to either make some changes, maybe just kind of auto rewrite, right? So let's go with auto rewrite and see what Copilot provides. Okay, now notice with these initial rewrites, we actually have 3 different versions. You'll notice this whenever generating content with Copilot that it does provide you a couple of options that you can cycle through and then either replace what's already existing. You can insert it below to do kind of a side-by-side comparison, or you can ask it to just straight up regenerate if none of the options that it provides work for you. Now, something else you can provide is the tone maybe you want Copilot to use. This is not just helpful in this example. I think the tonality options are especially useful when you're working with Copilot inside of Outlook, for example, right? Kind of drafting an email, trying to find the right words. Instead of, pulling up a thesaurus, you can ask Copilot to kind of use the intent that you're looking for, save you a little bit of time there. But yeah, so this is one of the ways, okay? But let's say maybe we just need more information, okay? We don't need just a rewrite based on what we have. We need more information based on these topics. So now we'll take the make changes option, okay, with Copilot, which then gives us an option to put in a prompt. I'm going to say I need more information on the context provided. I need this document to be at least 2 pages in length. Probably helps if I spell that right. Okay. And we're going to generate. All right. So now what Copilot is doing is it's providing us more information based on these individualized techniques. that we have, and it's giving us 2 pages worth of content at least, because that's what we're looking for here. See, it's almost done. Great. There we go. I like that. That looks perfect. If I needed to refine it further, I could provide an additional prompt. Okay. If I wanted it to completely regenerate, I could do that. If I think it's bad, I'll just discard it. I'll trash it. This is actually great. So we'll keep it. And so now we went from knowing nothing about the 5 most popular time management techniques to all of this information. Okay. This will suffice for the next step. Okay. Here's the next step. Now that we have this information, we do need to turn this into a presentation. Best way we can turn this into a presentation would be with everybody's favorite PowerPoints. Yay, woo. Um, which I never say whenever I have to create a PowerPoint, but let's do this here real quick. I'm going to pull up a fresh instance of PowerPoint. We're going to go to Copilot. And now notice we've got a couple of kind of base options here. Create a presentation about. So I could just give it some general information. Say create a presentation about time management. It'll give me something very broad. Okay. Very basic, very generalized. What I want to do is provide Copilot the context it needs to generate a presentation that fits what I'm looking for. So I'm going to ask it to create a presentation from a specific file that's living inside of my teams. That is going to be time management methods. Perfect. So that document that we just created. It's going through, it's finding everything. It's giving us an outline. And then it's doing one of my favorite things, which is adding speaker notes. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got so far. We've got a title slide. We need one of those. We've got an agenda, an intro, and then a slide for each individual technique, along with a layout and some imagery. Along with the imagery, notice we also have speaker notes. Now, if it wasn't for me kind of talking and explaining a couple of the different places where we're working with Copilot, um, this very task, you could go from bare bones, not knowing anything about this subject, to having I'd say this is roughly 80%, maybe 75% finished in the matter of, I don't know, 2 minutes, 3 minutes max. One of the things that's traditionally always taken me the longest amount of time is just getting these things done, getting like kind of the outline, right, of how I want it to look, how I want it to feel. Okay. Now, if I don't necessarily like the look and feel overall, I can also use the designer here, right, and change it. But from a just a bulk initial workload perspective, Copilot has done a majority of this work for me. So now I can actually focus on what matters here, which is going to be the specific content that I'll be talking about. Okay, probably in the form of speaker notes. Okay, that's in this example, that's where I would want to spend the majority of my time is how I'm going to explain these things. Now, I could also use Copilot to help me with the speaker notes, right? If I'm having writer's block or I'm not finding a good way to phrase something or explain something, I can have Copilot provide me options. As you guys can see, this is all incredibly fast. There's a lot of use cases here, and this is one very generic, broad example. Now, I also want to highlight how Copilot can work and function inside of something like Outlook. Okay. And then we'll also see how it operates inside of Excel. Now, with that, I do have another poll question I want to launch here real quick, which is, how soon does your organization plan to implement Copilot? Are you looking within the next 3, maybe next 6, next year, or you're undecided? You're just trying to figure out what's going on with all this AI stuff. Um, that's not an uncommon boat to be in, by the way. All this is like, it feels like a fire hose sometimes, right? Especially if this is one of your first times really kind of delving into it. But while you're answering this poll question, let's see what Copilot can do for us inside of Outlook. Now, for me personally, I don't use Outlook a ton. I use Teams probably more than anything for daily communication, but there are definitely emails from just throughout the week that kind of roll in that you got to respond to. But notice up here towards the top, I can have Copilot help prepare me for my next meeting that I have on the books, okay? Or I need it to recap the last meeting that I was in, maybe for information, right? It can pull from a transcript. Or I need it to find when my next meeting with a specific individual is inside of my organization. Maybe not super useful if you're kind of a smaller group, but definitely very useful if your calendar looks like somebody threw up on it and there's 10,000 holds everywhere, and you're double booked, right? Like I've seen calendars like those. This is where Copilot could really help you out. Now, another way that you can interact with Copilot is actually through email creation. Okay. So I can draft with Copilot here. There's a couple of ways that we can do this. We can have Copilot generate some examples for us, or we can actually have Copilot coach us, if you will. And when I say coach, it more so provides suggestions as we're writing our email to make sure that maybe we're getting our specific intent across, right? Or making sure we're not being too wordy, right? There's a lot of good feedback there. Well, let's say this. I need to send email to someone about the meetings on Project X. I think they are a waste of my time, and there we go. Let's just go with that. Okay. So what I can do is I can put in maybe exactly how I feel about a certain something, okay, into Copilot, and then have it wordsmith this a little bit for me. So let's see, our initial option. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to talk. I don't know about you, but I feel like you're a waste of my time. We spend hours, nothing ever gets done. Okay, maybe this isn't hitting my intended tonality. So this is where I can work with Copilot to help me out. I want it to maybe sound a little more casual, change the tonality. Still doesn't fit exactly what I'm looking for. So what I'll do here is inside of the prompt, I'll say, please make email come across polite and not insulting. Here we go. Here's that corporate word speak that I think evades all of us from time to time. Okay. Wonder if we can make the meetings more efficient and productive, right? Yada, yada, yada. Okay. One example, one scenario. Again, the other way that you can interact is with the coaching by Copilot. You do need to have at least 100 characters to get any sort of feedback. But if you're somebody who doesn't want AI writing things for you, you can write exactly what you want and then just have it kind of off to the side is like, your spell check, also your phrasing, your tonality, your intent, just kind of like, providing suggestions. Now, also notice Copilot can help organize your inbox, find something, you can ask questions, or, like we're just doing right now, help you write. Lots of different ways, right, that Copilot can help here. Now, one of my favorite pieces is Excel, right? So actually, let me go back to that poll question real quick, just because I'm kind of curious. Let's see. Okay, one of us did say, hey, interested in formula generation, right? For Excel spreadsheets. This is where I find outside of the education, summarization, right? Content creation. Outside of that, this is where I find Copilot to be the most powerful, because what we're able to do is go from knowing nothing about what we have in front of us. This is all fictional sample data. Okay, none of this are real numbers. Okay, this is just a fictional. But we can go from knowing nothing about this document here in a matter of seconds to be able to glean some insights that then help us think of more questions or more ideas, or maybe we just pull the information we need and go on to whatever the next task or project is. Right off the bat, we've got some prompts, okay, and some ideas. What I'm going to do is, let's say, hey, I don't even know what to ask here. I'm going to let Copilot do the work. And I'm going to say, hey, just show me some data insights. Help me make some sort of sense out of what all this information is. And here's why I think this is so powerful. Every organization nowadays has tons of data. The amount of data is never a problem. It's the way that we're utilizing that data. There underlies the problem. Okay. Our ability to actually glean insights from all of this data that we're collecting, because we have a ton of unknown knowns, right? If you will. The unknown knowns comes from a famous, maybe infamous, however you want to consider him, Donald Rumsfeld speech. We're going up on stage, put him at the White House, I should say, and he said, we have known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, and unknown unknowns. And everybody thought he was having a stroke, but he was actually saying there are things we know, there are things we know we don't know, there are things we don't know we know, and there are things we don't know we don't know. Where Copilot excels is in that exact things we don't know we know realm. So right off the bat, I don't know anything here. Ask Copilot to provide me a data insight, and it's given me cost of goods by date. I'm going to add this to a new sheet because I want to see what exactly this looks like, kind of separated away from everything else. And right off the bat, okay, now I have some numbers that I can make some sort of sense of that lets me know what's going on here with this information. I could take it a step further and ask it to provide more data insights. I could ask it to add formulas. Okay. Maybe if you're someone who interacts with formulas quite often, or you have a formula that for whatever reason isn't functioning properly, you can have Copilot assist you in fixing it. Okay, I've done that personally a handful of times. I just couldn't remember the correct syntax for one reason or another. But I think you guys can kind of, you're starting to probably see the wheels turn in your head and get an idea of where Copilot fits the best inside of your day-to-day needs, right? Like your use cases, where it could save you a ton of time. So that way you can focus on what's actually important, from a work perspective, right, on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I do have one more poll question here, which is, would you be interested in a little follow-up to learn more about how Copilot can benefit your organization? Figure out where it fits, where it makes sense. It's easy. Yes. Sounds great. Yes, but shoot me an email, or hey, Dave, leave me alone. Not at this time. Okay. Whatever it is, I appreciate everybody's response. And with that said, that brings us to what are we at? Like 10 till top of the hour. This is perfect. We finished up just a little bit early, so I'm able to give everybody some time back. I'll hang back here for a couple minutes. If anybody did have any specific questions about Copilot, I'd be happy to address those. But with that being said, if you have no questions, you're good to drop. Thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your day. Have a great rest of the week, and feel free to reach out. Yeah, Daniel, you bet. Thank you. See, there you go, Daniel. Free 30-day trial. There's all sorts of stuff out there right now. All sorts of stuff. It's great. Yeah, Mike, you bet. Thank you.